Good afternoon, good morning, or good night, wherever you are in the world. Thank you so much for joining us and welcome. My name is Natalie Fierstein, and I'm the Technical Lead for Defense Solutions at Esri. With me is Lyle Wright, one of our product engineers. Our team has 13 engineers and developers with various backgrounds. Some, like Lyle and I, started our careers in the military. Others have been at Esri since the command line was the norm, and others are fresh out of college. All of us build open source, supported, and maintain solutions for people in the defense, intelligence, and national security domains to help them get started and get the most use out of their implementation of ArcGIS, no matter if you're a novice or a ninja. One of those solutions, and the reason you're all here today, is military tools for ArcGIS. So what is military tools? It's a collection of essential tools that reduce the time, complexity, and ultimately the cost of performing routine analysis and creating common products for defense, intelligence, and other tactical operations. We built this because we listened to you. ArcGIS is powerful, and you know that it has what you need. But your time is valuable, and you want to have the essential tools, the ones you use the most, available to you in a single toolbar or ribbon. That's military tools for ArcGIS. Military tools consist of coordinate conversion, converting from one format to many others, distance and direction, creating geodetic lines, circles, ellipses, and range rings, visibility, performing radial and linear line-of-sight analysis, and the military symbol editor, creating symbols in a what you see is what you get kind of way. Military tools exist across ArcGIS, so you have the tools you need when and where you need them. There's an add-in that supports ArcMap 10.3.1 through 10.5, an add-in for ArcGIS Pro 1.4, and widgets for the developer edition of Web App Builder, version 2.2. Okay, great. So now that you know what military tools is, I'm going to turn it over to Lyle, and he's going to show you where you can find it.
On how we want to walk through how you get military tools for ArcGIS. And in our community, our customers receive our information in a few different ways. So we want to start with, if you were an administrator of a large organization and you have a Esri account, you'll be able to go into your organization. Okay, one sec. So you'll be able to go into your organization account, go to downloads, and be able to find military tools for ArcGIS and download this and then deploy that throughout your organization. But that's not all of our users. Some of our users have the ability just to download the software directly. And if that's the case, you would go to our solutions.arcgis.com site. The easiest way to find it would be to click on the Gallery tab, access the Defense tab on the left, and search for the many different tools that we provide. Military tools happens to be the first one I'm looking at. If I want to learn more, it gives me the basic information about this product. It tells me what the requirements are, the software. It also tells me on how to get this. So if you're in an environment where you can't download our software and you need physical media, you can request a DVD that we'll send to you anywhere in the US, and if you're overseas with an APO account or an APO address, we will also send it there. So if you need that physical media, we have that ability. If that's not the case, and you want to download it directly from our site, you would click Download, access the zip file, and download that content directly to your machine. Once you've downloaded that content, it will come as a zip file, and you'll start to explore it. We also have a large amount of developers in our community. And because of that, Natalie mentioned that we develop everything in the open. So we have GitHub repositories where we share all of the information that we create and all the issues and anything that has to do with us creating this product. You can come down and you can start to get a basic understanding of what's out there, and you could download this repository and start to customize it for your own use within your own organization. But if that's not you and you're a typical desktop or web user, you would get a download that would look something like this. We'll start with ArcGIS Pro. To install that, I'll click on an add-in that comes in this file. It's going to launch a dialog prompt. It's going to give me some basic information of it's verified and trusted from Esri and when it was actually created. I would just click on install this add-in, and that information or that add-in would now be available. I would do the same thing for ArcMap. There'd be an add-in as well that I can click on and install to allow me to have access to military tools for ArcGIS inside of ArcMap. Each of these products, ArcMap and ArcGIS Pro, also come with a geoprocessing toolbox. You're going to want to take this folder in its entirety and place it in a location where you can have access to these tools, these scripts, these layers, and this toolbox to allow you to possibly use these tools as is or fully customize these tools into your own work environment to solve your own mission needs. If you're a developer and you want to have access to the widgets we build, you would go into the Web App Builder Developer Edition folder and you would access these three folders. So I would take these three folders and I would copy these directly into my widgets directory, which I've already done inside of Web App Builder for ArcGIS. That gives you just a basic understanding of how you would install this product. So let's start and take a look at ArcGIS Pro. Once you've installed this product, it comes to us as a ribbon. In ArcMap, it comes to us as a toolbar. But you essentially have tools to access to where you can look at how do you convert coordinates, how would you be able to place graphics on a map, such as lines, circles, ellipses, and range rings. How would you do visibility analysis, conduct a linear line of sight, or conduct a radial line of sight? And finally, if I wanted to start using the military symbol editor to create custom military features, I could do that as well. So that's a basic introduction of how you would go about downloading the content, installing it, and having access to it on your machine. Natalie?
Thanks, Lyle. So Lyle just showed you how to find the tools, how to download them, and what you get when you download them, and what they look like in ArcGIS Pro. So what do they do? Coordinate conversion lets you enter a coordinate into a single input dialog. Convert that coordinate to several other formats, such as MGRS, US National Grid, degrees, minutes, seconds, and decimal degrees. Customize those coordinate notations and formats, copy those output coordinates to your clipboard to paste into another system, or export the list to a shapefile, a feature class, or KMZ. Distance and direction supports the creation of geodetic lines, circles, ellipses, and range rings, features that honor the curvature of the Earth in ArcMap, ArcGIS Pro, and in the web. Visibility is also available in ArcMap, ArcGIS Pro, and as a widget for Web App Builder, supporting radial and linear line of sight in both 2D and 3D. Now, instead of just talking about them, Lyle's going to show you what you can do with coordinate conversion, distance and direction, and visibility in ArcGIS Pro. Over to you, Lyle.
Okay, Natalie, we're going to start off in ArcGIS Pro. Just take a look at some of the ways that we can utilize this product. So let's start with looking at coordinates. I click on the tool coordinate conversion, and I have a few things that I want to do. The first thing is that I want to customize the way that I utilize this tool. So I want to have the feedback of when I'm collecting coordinates off the map to be in a certain format. For my work, I use MGRS. But there's a few different other formats that we do support, such as DMS, decimal degrees, US National Grid, and UTM. But just because I work there doesn't mean that all the individuals that I need to give coordinates to also work in that format. So I want to add a few other types that other people within my organization or people that I support also use. Sometimes it's not just the format, it's the notation itself of how it looks that we need to be able to customize for some military systems. So an example is, what if I have military or MGRS coordinates that need spaces between certain parts of the coordinate? I can now customize this on the fly to allow me to feed this information directly to another system. So once I've set up coordinate conversion the way I want to, I can start interacting with the map, and I get direct feedback on where my mouse is. And if I want to collect something, by just clicking on the map, it locks that coordinate in, and it allows me to then do whatever I need with these coordinates. So I have a few different options. If I want to take, let's just say the very first, this UTM coordinate, I could take this coordinate and I can copy that to a clipboard and just have that available. If I know individuals need more than one different format, I can copy all formats at one time. So I have a few different examples of how I can start to send coordinates to other systems to allow them to be utilized. So if I was to take this coordinate here into another application, paste that in, and then search for that. This application, if you haven't seen it before, is ArcGIS Earth. This is an application that allows you to view our data, services, KMZ, KML files, some way that you might look at Google Earth, what's called ArcGIS Earth. So that's the exact same coordinate that I just had available to me in my other system. It's the basic way that we can interact with coordinates. So let's go back here and let's talk about how would we use the distance and direction add-in. The first thing I want to do is I want to start creating lines. There's a certain type of line that I want to create, and that's a geodesic line. Let's jump over here. So I want to create a line that starts in the west coast of the United States and goes all the way to the United Kingdom. So one of the cool things about the distance direction add-in is you have automatic feedback. So as I drag my mouse over my map, I can see where that line is going to be created. I also have three different choices. I can create gradient elliptic and loxodrome lines as well. If I want to create lines from 2 given points, I have that option, but I also can do a distance and bearing. So I can choose another location on the map, and then from there I can set my distance of, let's say 10,000 meters at an angle of 120 degrees, and now that line will be created. Let's zoom out so we can see that line a little bit. I'll refresh it. There's that line itself. So just a basic way if I could start creating different types of lines. Same thing with circles. If I want to start creating circles over a particular area, I could have just an interactive way to start dragging that circle and create those circles. If I don't want to have these graphics on the map anymore, I can also clear these graphics at any point. And each individual tab interacts with those lines or those graphics differently. So if I want to just clear the circles, I can do that and keep my lines. One of the really good things that we have available is the ability to utilize these graphics to maybe support a different type of mission. So for an example is, I need to understand where something could be based on the object's ability of how fast it can travel and when the last time I've seen it. So let me just go ahead and just choose a location on the map. And with that location, I know there's the last time I've seen it was about 90 minutes ago. I also have the ability to put in seconds and hours. And I understand the rate of travel for this individual object is about 45 miles an hour. But there's multiple different formats that I could also support, such as kilometers a second, kilometers an hour, just depending on what the mission needs. So once I'm happy with that, I can now take that and utilize that in this application, or if I need to give it to somebody else, I have different ways that I can export that information out to different users. I can save it in a feature class that would save it in a geodatabase. I can save it as a shapefile, to allow other individuals that might support shapefiles. And then also if we have systems that use KMZs, we can also export this out as a KMZ. And that's just as easy as selecting that and just giving that file a name. So we'll save it on our desktop. Call it search area. So that file is now saved to my desktop to allow me to share it with others. Let's move on and look at the visibility add-in. The visibility add-in has two different tabs. It has a linear line of sight tab and a radial line of sight tab. So we'll start with the visibility line of sight. Essentially what I have are a few control checkpoints that I've marked on the ground and a few different observation locations. The visibility tab allows me to snap to different features. So if I know my observation points, I can snap to those points and it'll place those points directly on top of that feature. So I'll choose those 3 observation points. I'll choose these 3 target locations. And I'm just going to change my observer height to 3 meters. And of course, I have different units of measure that I could use here as well. So this is really exciting of how we've been able to support our users using a visibility workflow. Traditionally, what analysts would have to do is build a very large, complex model that allow them to conduct linear line of sight. If they wanted to understand what target was available to what observer to be seen by each individual observer, they have to pull that out of a table. And then there's at times where they might want to create sight lines as well. So this workflow does this all in an interactive way, all at the same time, returning those results to our users. So here's an example of what it creates. The red and green areas is the result of a linear line of sight. From that given target to that observer, what can I see on the ground? The area that's surrounding that, it looks like a black and white halo. Those are sight lines, and that actually allows me as an analyst to understand what that individual observer can see. An example is this observer here to the left or to the west can actually not see any of the targets. To further on to simplify this process, we've also labeled each of the individual targets with numbers. Those targets represent how many observers can see each of those individual targets. The really exciting thing about this is that we can change this to a 3D view on the fly and start to understand a little bit more about the analysis that we just conducted. What it's going to allow me to do is see this information in 3D. And as an analyst, at times I don't have time to go in to re-symbolize or change the heights of things. What I want to be able to do is just start interacting with the content right away. So we're able to do that and understand a little bit more. Let's look at this user in the West. And reality is when we look at this, it was just a location that probably wouldn't support this mission to be able to have overwatch on these different control points. But being able to look at this in 3D, I have a few different locations that might work better. So I have 2 different hilltops here. Maybe I can suggest that we can move that site location to one of these hilltops instead. So let's go back. Let's turn off these layers that we created. And let's run that analysis again. So I'm going to choose these 2 locations because those were good locations. Choose my 3 targets. And now for that 3rd location, let's zoom into that hilltop that was just a bit to the west. Let's try this one here. And let's rerun our analysis. So the idea is I might not get this right the first time. I might not even get it right the second time. But this is an interactive way to conduct a really complex analysis that allows our users to start interacting with our tools in the way that they've been made to use and to perform. I'm not sure how many of you have ever conducted a linear line of sight analysis, but I'm pretty sure that you probably haven't gotten 2 different results in a matter of minutes by looking at your results in 2D and 3D. That's really one of the powerful things that we have about ArcGIS Pro and what military tools now allows us to do. So now with those results, I have the ability to now see more of our target points from our observer locations, so I can send these to whoever requested these to start getting better feedback. So with that, let's move over to radial line of sight. And now I'm in an area that's in a densely urban area, and I have a location with a high building. And what I want to do is I just want to understand is if I was to have maybe some lookout points there, what would they be able to see in this area? So I'm going to go ahead and just choose these locations. I want to symbolize my non-visible data as well because I want to see both. So you have an option if you just want to see visible data, you can. And then I'll just set my observer height to 3 as well. No, let's leave that alone, and we'll send our distance to 500. So the exciting thing about this is this analysis is actually being run off of a last data set that we created a normalized digital terrain model from to allow us to conduct the analysis on a high resolution elevation data set. I know a lot of our users now have the ability to have access to this content, so turning this into a normalized digital terrain model allows us to conduct this type of analysis in an urban area where we might not have been able to do that if we were just using regular DTED or SRTM. So here's our results. Let's go ahead and look at the contents, and let's just simplify these to allow us to see just what's observable. So I'm going to highlight these 3 different locations. I'm going to group those values and change the symbology of this one. Let's go back to the bookmark and let's look at that again. So this gives me a really good understanding of what can be seen from the given locations that we started with. Well, better yet, what we're able now to do is we're able to do a interactive line of sight and radial line of sight on the fly by choosing locations from high elevation, a highly accurate elevation data set. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it back over to Natalie. Natalie?
Thanks, Lyle. So Lyle just showed you coordinate conversion, distance and direction, and visibility in ArcGIS Pro. Those same tools are also available as an add-in for ArcMap and widgets for the developer edition of Web App Builder. Next up, Lyle's going to show you a new way to work with military symbols in ArcGIS Pro. To create military symbols in a what you see is what you get kind of way. Customizing the symbols to represent the units and equipment you track, adding those symbols to your map, and saving them as favorites so you can access frequently used symbols. It's a really easy way to work with military symbols as you build friendly and enemy overlays. And with that, over to you, Lyle.
We're going to start off by looking at the corridor that we ran our linear line of sight from. And with installing the military symbol editor, I can create military features from any type of element. So any feature you have, you automatically have the ability to create any type of feature element. But the reality is a lot of us might not understand exactly what type of elements we need to create when it comes to military symbology. So the military symbol editor allows us to search, modify, and create these features as we start to answer more questions about the actual feature itself. So an example would be, I would just look for infantry. And it's going to find these. Now, one of the things you want to notice is that the add-in is not enabled. So what that means is I need to do a few things to make sure that I understand how I want this add-in to support my workflow. The first thing I want to do is I want to be able to set the default symbology standard that I'm using. Right now, there's 2 choices. There's either 2525D or military standard 2525B, change 2. So we're going to go ahead and select change 2. And then when I click this here, I'm going to get a warning. But what this warning is telling me is that it's going to create the schema that's going to drive the military symbol editor to create these different elements on the fly. So I say yes. Well, what's happening in the back end is it's loading these features into my geodatabase. So if I refresh my database, what I'll be able to see is a feature data set that has all of the different, the entire set of schema that I would need for the military symbol editor. So let's start creating something. So started out with just a simple infantry unit. And what I could do is at this point I could add it to the map if that's all I wanted to do. But the reality is military symbols are complex. So I have the choice of doing a few different types of ways or choosing the way this is symbolized. So what type of element is it? Is it a hostile element? Is it a friendly element? Do we understand if this is an anticipated, fully capable? Is it a present unit? What type of unit is it? Is it a headquarters? Is it a task force headquarters? Is it just a task force itself? And what echelon is it? So as I start to create these drop-downs, or I start utilizing these drop-downs, it starts creating the symbol on the fly. And a lot of times, if we create one symbol, we want to be able to share this with other individuals or come back to it and utilize it later on. To do that, I could just add this symbol to my favorite. If I want to understand the full capacity of how to utilize it, or I'm sorry, if I want to be able to utilize this right now, I would just add this to map and select a particular location of where those maybe task force are actually operating. If I have one of these that maybe I didn't utilize properly, or I didn't set everything properly, and I want to take this and say, oh, let's select this feature, and let's go back into that symbol and say, you know what, this is actually supposed to be a hostile feature, and then I say save edits. So what that then allows me to do is it allows me to not only create, but I can modify anything that I've dropped before to be able to update my military symbol overlay. So what about some complex types of symbols? So let's look for axis of advance. And we have an aviation maneuver element here. And I want to take this and add it to a map. So I know that this particular mission is going to have some aviation support. It's going to come from the south. So I can then highlight that and create that. And that element is now created, and if I wanted to modify something on that element, I could do the same thing I did before by highlighting that and going back to my search and putting something else such as anticipated and echelon company, and that information would then be there. If I knew this was a hostile line, I could update that and I could save those edits as well. I know this is a friendly element, so I'm going to save that edit. Clear my selection and then start interacting more. So I can drop multiple features. Here's just a couple of examples, but also we talked about this favorites. So I've saved one of my favorites, but maybe I want to import somebody else's favorites. Our favorites are saved as JSON files that just allow us to bring those information in and then be able to interact with those different locations. So if I want to utilize someone else's favorites to add different elements, I could do so by doing that as well. And if I don't like those, like if I have one that maybe I don't want, I could also delete that different element. So that's an example of how we have military symbology. The military symbol editor supports military symbology in ArcGIS Pro. So we've talked a lot about Pro. We've mentioned ArcMap, but we haven't talked about the web. So let's look at the web. Here's an application that has our widgets already deployed. There's 3 widgets that we provide for the web. It's the coordinate conversion, distance direction, and visibility. These elements, go ahead and just restart this. These widgets allow us to interact with these widgets the same way that we do the military tools add-in inside of our desktop application. The example is if I have a given location that I want to update and just find different types of coordinates, I can do so. If I want to support a different format, such as what we talked about before, I could come in here and I can provide different character elements that then allows that information to be made available. So the idea is that we want to provide some of the same functionality that we did for the desktop in the web. Same exact idea for the distance and direction. If I want to create lines from one given location to another, we can do so. If I want to create possible, let's say, range rings from a given location, but I want to do that in a different way. There's a few different ways I can do that. I can do that by just selecting a center point and choosing a number of rings. So let's say that we are out here at sea, and with this given point, I want 5 rings at 10,000 meters with 5 radials. I can do so, hit enter, and it will create those elements. But I also can do something that would help us understand possibly a bigger threat. So let's go ahead and go back to an overview, and let's look at the U.S. And what if I had an issue that happened in the city of Boston, but I knew it was going to possibly affect other cities in an area? I can go back to the range rings and choose interactive, and then choose the location of where the threat starts, and say, so I know my first range ring is going to go out to New York, my second one to Philadelphia, and then possibly to Washington. So I have the ability to create these range rings interactively, or just based on a given one distance between each individual ring. On top of that, we also have the visibility widget. Now, the visibility widget works on a geoprocessing service that runs on the back end that we deploy or we provide with the military tools for ArcGIS download. And it works a little differently than it does in the desktop. Essentially, you would start with a basic field of view. If you wanted just a small field of view, or if you wanted the whole thing, you can do so. So let's just start with 145 is our field of view, and I want to start my analysis at a certain rate and then stop at a certain rate. I choose a location on the map, and that will kick off a request to our ArcGIS server where our geoprocessing service is running, and then it will return a result momentarily. So there's our viewshed analysis in the web. It's not the exact same thing as it is with the add-in, but it's still a very useful widget that will allow you to conduct some analysis throughout an organization where maybe individuals just need a simple answer. So if you're deploying these, how would you start? You start in Web Application Builder. You would create a new application. We'll just call this example. And because I've already added these when I installed everything else for military tools for ArcGIS, they'll just be made available. So when I come to my widgets, I come here and I add, I have all those widgets available to me. I can choose the coordinate conversion widget. That gives me a basic understanding of what types of coordinates do I want in my widget. And when I launch this widget, I can see those basic formats that I've chosen. The distance and direction widget, when you choose that, it allows you to choose the different colors for lines, circles, ellipses, and rings. If you want to choose one of these, you can interactively choose a color. And then save that, and that ability will be made there. For the geoprocessing service, the visibility, you have to deploy that before you utilize a widget, and you would just select that by putting that location in here. So we'll go to one of our servers that we have available to us. Access that geoprocessing service, take this URL, copy that back into our widget, and now that widget's been configured. So the idea is, even though our web environment is for some of our developers to extend our ArcGIS platform, using Web Application Builder and military tools for ArcGIS, you have the ability to use some custom widgets out of the box that could possibly help your organization to conduct some analysis on the web that would fully extend the reach of the ArcGIS platform. So from there, I'm going to pass it back over to Natalie.
And the grid overlay widget that are available now as separate downloads on the solutions website. Now, before I wrap up by telling you about upcoming webinars that'll help you get the most out of military tools, we'll take the next few minutes to answer any questions that came in during the presentation. please use your chat function for 3D symbology and feature release, and we do support some of those standards with this tool.
Then we have, let's see, he already has ArcMap. How can he access the tool?
Okay, so if you already have ArcMap or if you have ArcGIS Pro, you can go to My Esri and download the tool from there. You can go to the Solutions website, search for military tools in the gallery and download it from there. Or you can put in an order for a DVD if you need physical media sent to you.
Okay, and then next question here from Ed Harrell. Will there be a military symbol editor available on the web?
Thanks, Ed. We have considered that, and it's not something that is out of the realm of possible. We'd actually like to sit down with you and understand your requirements better.
Let's see here. Is the viewshed widget available on higher domain levels? I'm not sure. That's from Mike Galt.
Mike, if you would like to get the viewshed widget or the visibility widget on a different domain, you would have to get it the same way that anyone else would on any network, is either getting it off of My Esri, downloading it, or getting the DVD and then passing it through the proper clearances and operations.
Okay, and then next one here from, oh boy, I'm sorry, it moved. Is it possible to publish military symbols to the web app? Nate Novak.
Nate, it is possible to publish military symbols to a web map, which you can use in any web app.
Next question from Nathan Enging. Is there a capability in Pro for data-driven plotting to span multiple UTMs? Not sure.
I'm not sure. I think we'd have to get with you directly and talk through that workflow so that we can better understand your requirements.
Here we go. This is from Steve Augenstein. Hi, Steve. This is Fred Woods. Will there be a capability to perform signals propagation for visibility?
Hi, Steve. At this time, we do not have particular signals propagation models hard-coded into the tool. However, you could use some of the geoprocessing tools that come with military tools for ArcGIS to build your own models that can take advantage of those propagation models that you have.
Next up is from David Braden Lane. Are there plans to develop military symbols that support APP6, the NATO standard?
Hi, David. Previous versions of APP6 were actually marked NATO unclassified, which technically is an FOUO or LIMDIS distribution, so we could not properly support that standard. However, the next version of APP6 Delta, does not have that restriction on it, and we are looking at when that standard is ratified, being able to support APP6 Delta.
Okay. I'm going to go with one from Garnet Hunter here. It says here, it appears that the range rings are perfect circles and are not geodesic.
They are geodesic, so it may have just been where they were in the world. We actually don't support planar features at this time.
Okay, this is from Rod Woods. Military Analyst extension used to provide support for VPF. Will the military tool look at including VPF support? Military Analyst extension used to provide, okay, yeah. just repeated. Will it include VPF support?
No, military tools for ArcGIS will not include VPF support.
Can military tools or symbols be used in ArcReader or Arc Explorer environment?
Military tools were developed as an add-in for ArcMap, an add-in for ArcGIS Pro, and widgets that can be used in the developer edition of Web App Builder and then deployed as an app. You can, the outputs of these tools could absolutely be viewed in ArcReader or ArcGIS or an Arc Explorer environment, but the tools themselves will not work there.
Okay, I'm not sure about this one here from an Arlet. How to find line of sight for radial observer points for different radiuses in 360 degrees.
How can we find line of sight for radial observer points for different radiuses in 360 degrees? That's a really interesting question, and we would love to meet with you afterwards if you send us an email so we can really understand what you're trying to do and see what we can help you out with.
Let's see here. Can we get live location data from the field and do analysis on the fly?
Hi, Mohammed. If you have a feed coming in or some other kind of service that's populating your map with live data, the great thing about these tools is that you can use the built-in editing function in ArcGIS Pro or ArcMap and snap to that feature, so you can perform that analysis on the fly.
Is there a try it now example for the web app builder widgets? From Rob Feuerstein.
Hi, Rob. Thanks for the question. We are working on getting a try it now example of an app that showcases the widgets, and we will get that out shortly.
I'm not sure. Francisco Salas, if you can please provide your question in English, that would be very helpful. There we go. Then we have one from Carl Linderman. Is there a complete list of the military tool geoprocessing services available to add into Portal web apps?
Yeah, the tools for military tools for ArcGIS are actually delivered as geoprocessing tools, not geoprocessing services. Now, you could use the majority of those tools and publish them as geoprocessing services in your own environment.
And then from Maria Garcia, are there tools for air traffic management, or is it possible to develop this functionality with ArcGIS Runtime SDK for Java?
Hi, Maria. I wouldn't want to answer that question because I just don't know enough about air traffic management to know if it's possible. But if you send us an email, we'd love to look at your use cases and see what we can do to help you out.
All right, it's from Thomas. We have, can these tools be implemented in a native app for a mobile device using App Studio?
That came in from Thomas. Thomas, I couldn't answer that truthfully right now, but we could look at that further. I know that if you do build an app with Web App Builder Developer Edition, it does work across many different mediums. So many of those will work in a web environment or a mobile environment, but they are not native applications.
I'll go ahead and answer Carolyn. Do you have a presentation available? This whole presentation will be available shortly, so please come back and check on the website where you registered. And then I have a question from Francisco. In which programming language are the symbols used?
Hi, Francisco. All the add-ins were built in .NET. The widgets were in JavaScript, and we use a dictionary render that is part of the core platform to display that symbology. Hi, Pierre. So I kind of talked about that a little bit earlier in our roadmap. We do plan to enhance the current tools that are there, and then look at some of the, again, we want these tools to really answer and be for foundational workflows, those elements of your everyday workflow, and where you need these tools to be rightly available to you in an easy-to-use manner. So we will not include everything that we build in military tools, but those foundational workflows, we are looking at how we can build up these tools to be more useful and most beneficial to the analysts.
This is a great question. Does Esri offer, or will they offer, ELT applications?
That is a great question, but it's not a question for me, unfortunately. I am not the imagery analyst, export, or program manager. If you do send, if you would like to know more about that or discuss that with someone, you can send us an email, any of us on the line, and we'll find the right person. Are there any other questions? Otherwise, we'll move right along. Okay, great. So finally, I'd like to invite you to join us in future webinars as we do deeper dives into how you can use military tools as an analyst and as a developer. In those webinars, we'll show you how to configure the tools, different ways to use the tools in everyday workflows, and how you can crack them open and modify them to your exact specifications. I want to thank you all for spending the last hour with us. I know your time is valuable. Before you head back to work, I encourage you to log on to my Esri, go and visit the Solutions website, or place an order to have a DVD sent directly to you so you can start taking advantage of these tools right away. I look forward to hearing about how you use military tools and further ways we can help you get the most out of your investment in ArcGIS. If you're at Fed GIS in DC next week, Lyle and I will both be there, so please do stop by, introduce yourself. We'd love to meet you.